Before we dive into tuxedos, martinis, and secret missions, let's pull back the curtain on the men who became James Bond and the shadows that followed him. Behind the charm and the danger of cinema's most iconic spy lies a trail of heartbreaks, betrayals, and buried secrets. Each Bond wore the suit differently, but off-screen, their lives were filled with struggles that even 007 couldn't escape. From hidden insecurities to career backstabs and personal tragedies, here's the untold truth behind the world's most famous secret agents. Let's begin with the very first Bond himself. Sean Connery, 1962 to 1971 and 1983. First up is Sean Connery, the Scottish legend who defined James Bond from 1962 to 1971, then returned once more in 1983. Connery wasn't just the first Bond, he was the Bond blueprint, with his smooth accent and effortless charm. But here's something few people know. He wore a toupee in every Bond film. Connery started losing his hair in his early 20s, long before he ever put on the tux. It was a well-kept secret on set, with hairpieces made so perfectly that no one noticed. Playing the world's most confident spy while holding that insecurity, that's real pressure. It wasn't just about appearance. It was part of his tough, self-made image. Before fame, Connery led a tough, working-class life in Edinburgh, delivering milk, polishing coffins, and even competing in Mr. Universe contests. That hard edge shaped his grounded persona, but also clashed with Hollywood's glamour. Despite turning Dr. No into a global hit, he earned just €16,000, a fraction of the film's profits. Feeling exploited, he fought for fairer pay in later films, a real-life battle mirroring Bond's defiance. But controversy followed him off-screen. In a 1965 interview, Connery made a shocking remark about women and violence, comments that resurfaced years later and deeply tarnished his image. By the late 60s, fame had become suffocating. While filming You Only Live Twice, he grew weary of relentless paparazzi and the loss of privacy that came with global stardom. For Connery, Bond was both a blessing and a burden, a role that made him immortal, yet one he could never fully escape. George Lazenby, 1969. Next, we shift to George Lazenby, the one-and-done Bond from 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service. This Australian model-turned-actor had no prior acting experience, yet he bluffed his way into the role like a true secret agent. Lazenby showed up to auditions in a fake Rolex and Savile Row suit he borrowed from a tailor, all to convince producers he was Bond material. It was a bold lie, but it worked. During those auditions, he even got into a real fist fight with a stuntman, breaking the guy's nose. Ironically, that raw aggression sealed the deal, showing he could handle the action. But Lazenby's tenure was short-lived. He turned down a lucrative 7-film contract, believing Bond was out of fashion in the hippie era of free love and anti-establishment vibes. His agent convinced him spies were passé, and Lazenby bought into it, dreaming of bigger, more artistic roles. But that was a mistake. After quitting, Lazenby struggled mightily. He bounced around minor films, grew a beard, and embraced the counterculture. But Hollywood didn't bite. At one point, he even went back to selling cars, his old job before Bond. The glamour evaporated, leaving him in financial straits and regretting his impulsiveness. Years later, Lazenby openly admitted that leaving Bond was the worst decision of his career. It haunted him, turning what could have been a legendary run into a what-if story. Pride and bad advice cost Lazenby a legendary career. Sometimes your greatest enemy is yourself. Roger Moore, 1973 to 1985. Now, on to Roger Moore, the charming Englishman who lightened up the franchise from 1973 to 1985. Moore brought more humor and eyebrow-raising wit to Bond, but his time wasn't all smooth sailing. During filming of Live and Let Die, a speedboat stunt went horribly wrong, nearly killing him when the boat flipped. Moore escaped with bruises, but it was a reminder of the physical toll. Throughout his tenure, Moore battled recurring health issues, including kidney stones and heart problems, often gritting his teeth through pain on set to keep the production rolling. Imagine playing the unflappable 007 while dealing with debilitating agony. Moore was famously squeamish about guns in real life, despite Bond's arsenal. He disliked firearms, advocating for gun control and even refusing to handle them off-set. This irony added depth to his portrayal. He once said he played Bond as a lover, not a killer, leaning into comedy over brutality to mask his discomfort. Behind that suave facade, Moore's personal life was turbulent. He went through 4 marriages, admitting to emotional turmoil during his Bond years. Affairs, divorces, and the strain of fame took a toll, with Moore reflecting on how the role amplified his insecurities. Behind that polished image hid a man wrestling with health scares and heartbreak, making his light-hearted Bond a form of escapism. Timothy Dalton, 1987 to 1989. Then came Timothy Dalton, the intense Welsh actor who darkened Bond in 1987's The Living Daylights and 1989's License to Kill. Dalton was actually offered the role back in the 1970s but turned it down, feeling he was too young at 25 to capture Bond's world weariness. When he finally stepped in, he steered the character toward a grittier, more realistic vibe, drawing straight from Ian Fleming's novels. No gadgets overload, just raw espionage and moral ambiguity. But his era was cut short by messy legal battles over franchise rights, stalling production for 6 long years and leaving Dalton in limbo. He later confessed relief at stepping away, hating the press circus that came with it. Interviews, scrutiny, it all grated on his private nature. Dalton rarely discusses Bond now, preferring stage work and TV roles where he can disappear into characters without the hype. His hidden darkness, a sense of unfinished business, compounded by his aversion to fame. Dalton's Bond was brooding and authentic, but the controversies around delays left scars, making him the most underrated and perhaps the most reluctant 007. Pierce Brosnan, 1995 to 2002. Pierce Brosnan brought a smooth, modern edge to Bond from 1995 to 2002, combining style with heart. But his journey to 007 wasn't easy. He was originally chosen for The Living Daylights in the 1980s, only to lose the role when his TV show Remington Steele was unexpectedly renewed. A devastating setback that delayed his dream for years. Off-screen, tragedy struck when his first wife, actress Cassandra Harris, died of ovarian cancer in 1991. Her loss broke him, and he poured that pain into his Bond performances, giving the character a rare emotional depth. Even on set, danger followed. During The World Is Not Enough, a stunt explosion left him injured. But the harshest blow came later, when producers abruptly replaced him with Daniel Craig despite his box office success. Feeling betrayed and discarded, Brosnan's time as Bond glittered on the surface, but was shadowed by heartbreak and Hollywood's cruelty underneath. Daniel Craig, 2006 to 2021. Finally, Daniel Craig, the brooding Bond who redefined Bond from 2006 to 2021. When announced, fans erupted in backlash. The Not My Bond campaign raged because of his hair color and non-traditional look. Boycotts, petitions, it was brutal, but Craig proved him wrong with gritty, physical performances. Injuries were his constant companion. Teeth knocked out in Casino Royale, shoulders dislocated, fingers broken in stunts. He pushed his body to the limit, often refusing doubles to keep it real, turning Bond into a battered warrior. After Spectre, Craig famously said he'd rather slash my wrists than return. a raw admission of exhaustion from the role's demands. Yet, he came back for No Time to Die, earning over $100 million, becoming the highest-paid Bond ever. Despite the tough image, Craig's pre-fame life was humble. He worked as a waiter, scraping by before stardom. His darkest secret? That vulnerability beneath the steel. A man who craved privacy but endured the spotlight's glare, making his farewell bittersweet. David Niven, 1967. And before we close the file, a bonus secret worth mentioning. David Niven, the unofficial Bond in 1967's spoof Casino Royale. Ian Fleming once called Niven his ideal 007. Elegant, witty, a true gentleman spy. But Niven's life was laced with tragedy. His first wife died in a tragic accident. She fell down a staircase at a Hollywood party during a game gone wrong and passed away a few days later from her injuries. The loss devastated Niven, leaving him to raise 2 young sons on his own. That heartbreak stayed with him for the rest of his life, adding a quiet sadness behind his trademark wit and charm. So, what's the real secret of James Bond? From toupees and tantrums to tragedies and betrayals, these secrets show that being Bond comes at a cost. Which one shocked you most? Drop it in the comments. Like if you're a 007 fan, and subscribe for more Hollywood hidden truths. Until next time, stay secretive.